David Clarabot coming your way from Las Vegas, and we are talking today about Thestatvantage.com. And what is Thestatvantage? Well, we're going to go live here, folks. So I'm clicking on the button of stream live, and here we go. Any case, we want to talk about Thestatvantage. Thank you for joining us. Now, whenever we talk about basketball, most of the time when we talk about basketball, we're talking about opinions. We have one coach's opinion against another. We have this offense against that offense. We have somebody with a brand new defense set up. All those things are possible and they all make sense. But on Thestatvantage, which is a revolutionary, and I mean revolutionary approach to boys high school basketball, we have a brand new thing coming your way. Now again, we're coming live, so if you have questions or comments, feel free to put them in. I'm going to be talking about some of the questions and comments that I do get. But by all means, just type in a question and a comment on YouTube here at Thestatvantage, and I'll take care of it for you. Anyway, Thestatvantage.com is referred to, as you know, as the DNA of boys high school basketball. The DNA of boys high school basketball. What in the world could that be? Well, it's this. It's a science. We have taken basketball and moved it out of the realm of opinion and theory and discussion into a science. Now, there's still a lot of discussion, a lot of theory even underneath that. But we wanted to get you coaches particularly, as well as all you other folks that are interested in high school hoops, because it's just such a great game, to find out what scientifically wins and does not win in the high school game. Now, how do we do this? Well, let me give you the background very quickly. We took 250 high school teams from all over the country, nationwide, balanced region to region, even state to state. And we took every stat we could find. 2-point attempts, 2 points made, 3-point attempts, 3 points made, free throws made, offensive, defensive, rebounds, assists, steals, turnovers, every conceivable stat we got our hands on. Now, in that 250 team group, we made very certain that what we're going to be able to do, I gotta check something off, folks, here. Got to reject a phone call, just came in, but it's not about Statvantage, so just take a minute now, folks. Anyway, we took those 250 teams and also balanced them in terms of wins and losses. So you take 250 teams, most of them play 25, 30 games, and the total number of wins, the total number of losses are exactly the same, nationwide. So we have a very representative sample of what the country looks like. But I'm not done yet. We took another sample 2 years before that and did exactly the same thing. So now we have two data groups from two different years, and we probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 games covered there, 40,000 quarters. So we are very confident that we have a grip on what's going on. Now, we took all those stats, and what we did is we correlated them. We related them, if you will, to winning and losing. What areas of basketball have to be emphasized that bring wins in high school basketball and what ones do not. Now, all this is available at Thestatvantage.com. We put it into a small book, okay? And the book's going to cost you less than a basketball. Less than a basketball, probably used basketball. We priced it inexpensively because we know the budgets under which you folks live, okay? And we know fans don't have an unlimited amount of money. But if you go to Thestatvantage.com, you're going to get a couple of options. One, you're going to get that book, and I'm going to talk about some of the things in the book in a minute, okay? But you'll also have an opportunity, if you're a coach, for us to actually analyze your particular team, give you a service throughout the season on your team to guide what you're doing statistically. Now, why are stats important? Let's talk about that just for a minute. The NBA spends not hundreds, not thousands, but millions of dollars on stats. And they don't do it for the fans. They do it for the coaches, for the front office, because they realize these stats tell the truth. They're the DNA. You can watch film. You can use the eye test. But when you get the numbers, then you find out who can do what consistently. Because a lot of times that's not visible. Many of you coaches use videotape. You film games. And that's a good idea. Or you get films on other teams. But when you look at a film, you're looking at one game. That's it. You get a sample of one. So you get this one kid shooting out of his mind that night, and you think he might be a pretty good player. Discover later, he's just an ordinary guy who had a good night. You know what I'm talking about. Thestatvantage will give you the real fact of what wins and loses nationwide consistently. Now, let me give you a DNA factor right here. A lot of people ask this question, okay? Very typical question you're going to get. Now, here's one right now. It comes to me like this. It'll say, Coach, should I play up-tempo basketball, fast break ball, or should I go half court? Which one should I do? You get that all the time, okay? Guess what? It makes no difference. There is no relationship between winning and whether you play up-tempo or half court. It depends totally on the nature of your team and your team's skill set. That's what it counts on, nothing else. So you need to always be looking at how you want to make your team go, fast or slow, because that's not what's going to win or lose. Now, a lot of other coaches say, look, should I start loading up from the three-point line? Maybe if I load up from the three-point line, I can pull that defense out and that opens some zones underneath for the easy two-point shot. You hear that all the time. We find nationwide most teams shoot too many three-point shots. In other words, their shooting percentage on three-point shots is so low, sometimes under 20%, that it drags down their overall shooting percentage. And what happens is that even if you gave them a bucket and a half for every three-point shot, because really it's worth an extra half buckets, 3 points, right? You add that on, it still isn't worth taking those shots. Now, again, if you have a lights-out shooter, fine. But I would be definitely checking that lights-out shooter statistically to be absolutely sure that he's shooting a high enough percentage. Sometimes you have to gun it up from downtown. You're behind by 3, there's 5 seconds left, there's nothing else you can do. But a lot of teams try to develop a three-point strategy and they are dying. It's a cemetery for those teams. I'll give you another interesting stat. I got a good question for you. Here's a dynamite question. What is the average shooting percentage in high school basketball? What is it? And two-point shots. And the answer is right around 44%, okay? So you look at your team, when you look at Thestatvantage, our book, you're gonna see just about where your team stands in terms of shooting nationally. Now, if you can stay above the line in shooting percentage, in turnover ratio, in assists above the line, in assists, when I'm talking about turnover, above the line means not so many turnovers, you know what I'm talking about. You start looking at that, I can tell you right now, when you go to the far left of the win-loss column, you're going to see a lot more W's than L's. What Thestatvantage will do, scientifically, is show you exactly where you need to be in every category in order to be successful, and what you can do to get better. That last point's important. Now, I'll give you a question. Here's a question from me, and this is an interesting one. The question goes like this. How important is rebounding? Now, you go to any diner and talk to the folks that go to the high school games on Friday night, or you get a bunch of coaches together for a pizza or a beer, and guess what they're going to tell you? You got to have those boards, baby. If you can command those boards, you're in. That's what wins. You got to just dominate those boards. We found that's not true. Rebounding does not correlate much with winning. Now, again, if you get 2 out of every 3 rebounds, yeah, it probably will. But the reason that rebounding doesn't correlate much with winning is because rebounding is often rather random. You see it all the time. Kid takes a jump shot, he misses. Hits the iron, it skitters off. You get a bunch of kids scrambling for the rebound. Oftentimes it falls on the floor. It turns out to be a loose ball. In other words, so often the rebounding is really a function of where the ball falls. Yes, positioning is important, but they're all muscling each other. Now again, rebounding is important. If you don't get any rebounds, you're going to lose a lot of games. But muscling up and rebounding is not going to be the difference between a good season and a great season. So the question is, what is? It has to be shooting, right? It's not. The number one thing that wins in high school basketball is ball handling. It's ball handling. You know, some of the great coaches, going back to the likes of Dean Smith and some of these people we hear about in college, guess what? They knew pass and catch, pass and catch, pass and catch. Because they understand how important it is to not get stuck dribbling around and getting the ball stolen, but moving the ball, but making accurate passes and catching it cleanly. And that leads to baskets. And that leads to possessions that always have the same result. You have a possession that leads to a shot. What kills you in high school, and I can tell you it over and over again, what kills you in high school is having the ball and not getting a shot. That's called a turnover. Or taking the ball, having a guy jack that shot up from someplace when he could have hit another guy wide open under the basket. Ball handling trumps everything. You don't have to have big guys. You have to have guys who can take care of the ball and use it well when they have it. That's what wins in high school basketball. Those are just a few examples of what we have at Thestatvantage.com. Go to that website, Thestatvantage.com, and you will see what we have. Again, we have a book, and that book alone will win you games. You're going to win more games if you buy that book, I'm almost certain. I can't guarantee it if you don't put it into practice, but if you use those techniques, you're going to win more games. You're going to see things you can't believe, numbers that you think would be so much different than what they are. And then you also have the option of getting us to give you an ongoing service, affordable for your team. Affordable for your team, that's important. But anyway, these are just a few ideas, okay? Now let's talk about one other thing. We talked about what a major stat would be. So you take wins in one column, and then you take the stat, and you connect them to see where the correlation is. You know, how high is it, okay? Now, we talked about, we have a stat, for example. We call it a floor stat. Like, it comes after the term, a team rather has a good floor game. We've all heard that before, okay? They have a very good floor game. We've combined the stat of assists, steals, and turnovers, okay? We've taken all those stats together and taken steals, assists, and turnovers, and we combine it into a combo stat, a floor stat. And we find that stat right there correlates more powerfully with winning than virtually every other stat we have. It's much more powerful than shooting. A lot of people think shooting wins. Shooting will win if you're taking shots on every possession and you're shooting decently. But let me tell you something. If you're turning that ball over too much, what's happening, or you're not getting enough steals going the other way, the other team's getting shots on every possession. If you're doing that, you're going to have to turn the gym lights out shooting in order to beat a good team. You take care of the ball, and you will. Let me give you another one. Christmas time, see the tree in the background. They give you some gifts, okay? Lots more at Thestatvantage.com. Go on that website, get that book, but let's go a little further, okay? Here's a common question. Here it is. Okay, how important is free throw shooting? Boy, here's another one. I know when I was a kid, I'd go to a high school game and my favorite team would lose to an arch rival by a couple of points. And I would remember how many free throws our team missed. And I'd go home and I'd say to myself, boy, if I was the coach, I'd have my guys shooting free throws for an hour at a time. They'd have to make 10 straight with their eyes shut. You know, some crazy thing like that. Because after all, I saw the power of free throws. Deep breath, folks. Free throws have very little to do with winning or losing. The average team shoots maybe 56%. Now you might say, why is that? Well, first of all, a free throw gives you 1 point. That's all it gets you per free throw. So it's worth half of a regular basket. Now, second, we're living in an era where fewer fouls are called. Teams and basketball coaches don't want to spend their time in a free throw line. Fans don't want to sit there and watch that. So what's happening is you have to have a certain number of fouls, you know, before you even go into shooting, all right? And then you got rules that, as I said a minute ago, have changed. I mean, for a long time, if you had bad breath, you can almost have a foul called if you breathed on somebody. Now you could have a collision, nothing happens, because if nobody gained the advantage, it's incidental contact. Fewer fouls not that many shots taken, okay? And then the shots are worth only essentially half a basket per made shot, okay? Now let's say one team shoots 70%, another team shoots 50%, okay? And let's say they do that on 20 free throws. That's a lot of free throws in a high school game. That means one team made 10, the other one team made 14. That's 4 points. That's worth something. But that's a spread of 20%, friends. On free throws, it's only worth 4 points. Now, should you practice them? Yes. But don't be standing there and spending all your time shooting those free throws or doing shooting drills where everybody takes 3-point shots. That's not the way it works. You're better off conserving your energies and your time and focusing in on the things you want to really make a difference doing. Now here's another interesting number. Question comes up. Steals. How big are those? Are steals important? Well, here we go. I'll tell you how important they are. They're very important. They're more important than rebounding. Steals. You know why? Because most of the time, when a team steals the ball, it results in a layup on the other end. The ball is stolen, the guy goes lickety-split down the floor, and he lays it in the other end. 2 points. That's what a steal does. And it's devastating each way. You give them up, you give up 2 points almost every time. You get them, and you get 2 points each time. And that shot at the other end is a layup. It's not a jump shot. It's usually a layup, okay? And not infrequently, the guy from whom the ball is stolen goes all out down that court to try to stop that layup and winds up fouling, so you get the and one situation. That's what happens. How important are these numbers? Almost all of you heard of Brad Stevens, the phenom at Butler, 2 times to the national championship at Butler, now coaching the Celtics. He said that stats to him were very important, as important, hope you're sitting down folks, as important as film. You see, it's the DNA. In a sense, it's science. It's not simply my opinion. This is why we did 2 separate studies 2 years apart with all these teams and a balanced study. Because we wanted to be sure that when we brought something to our fans and to our coaches, we could say, hey folks, this is the way it really is. Now, many times, if you're a good coach, it's going to confirm some of your ideas. But no matter how good you are, I can assure you it will not confirm everything. You're going to see things that you didn't think were important that are much more important. And you're going to see things that are going to be less important than you thought they were. These are very important things to understand, and that's what Thestatvantage does. It rolls that game out for you as a coach. So now when you practice, you say to yourself, I got it now. You could look at individual players and break down their games along the stat lines that we show you. So you've got individual development. And the off season, you could say, look, so-and-so, practice this or practice that, because you know it's very important in winning. And you know it's an area that that player has to really go to work and improve. When you do those things, you make your team stronger and you go into the season confident. You know, I coached a lot of basketball and I won my share of titles, okay? But let me tell you something. The one thing I always wanted was to go in feeling I was prepared and go in feeling that I was confident, that I had my team ready and I knew what had to happen to win. You're going to have that with Thestatvantage. I've always been fascinated by the numbers. I've looked at that in baseball. There's so many great stats in baseball come out in the last 15, 20 years. They've changed how we understand the game. Thestatvantage.com, where you need to go right after this video, is going to change the game for you. And you're going to say, wow, this is different. This is terrific. I want this. If you just get the book, terrific. But beyond that, you can go on and you can get individual service for your team if that helps you as well. But the idea is to take this science, this DNA, and put it to work for you. Let me tell you one last thing. You can even use Thestatvantage as a scouting tool. I don't have much more time to go into that because we're kind of reaching the end of our time. But let me tell you one quick thing on that. When I coached, there were a lot of times I played a team, maybe at a holiday tournament. I had never seen them. And I didn't know any other coach had seen them. No film, hardly anything. I got a hold of their stats. And if I got a hold of their stats, and I had, of course, the StatVantage knowledge, I was able to piece together what they did, and I was ready for them when they came. I was ready for them in terms of defending them. And suddenly there were no surprises. Lord knows how many times you and I, as coaches, have gone out there and suddenly we're down 22-6 because a team has something working that we were not prepared for. And as a result, you think by it, maybe you kind of creep back to within 8 or 10 by the half, but you're chasing that team the rest of the way and you come up a little bit short. And you go back to that locker room and you know, maybe your players don't, but you know, if you'd have known more about that team, that first 22-6 wouldn't have happened. And you'd have come in that locker room a winner. You could even use it to scout. It's Thestatvantage.com. Go on our website, see it, get it, use it, and have a merry and blessed Christmas and a wonderful new year. This is Dr. David. Thank you.